Добрый день, коллеги. Мы рады продолжить техническую программу Positive Hack Days. И следующий доклад называется достаточно странно «Интернет-картография в 2023 году» или «Чего не может Shodan». На самом деле список, наверное, большой, чего не может Shodan, например, принести мне кофе, но мы остановимся на других, более технических аспектах. Прежде всего, кто мы такие? Игорь Первушин, Александр Гурин и я, Сергей Гордейчик. Мы увлекаемся компьютерами, ходим в компьютерный кружок. Этот компьютерный кружок называется Cyber-Rock. Достаточно давно. Также хотелось бы подсветить то, что все эти слайды не имеют никакого отношения к реальности, к нашим заказчикам, к нашим официальным представителям нашей компании, коим мы в данный момент не являемся. Поскольку никто не видел этих слайдов, даже мы до конца их не видели, потому что сводили их только что здесь на столе. Так что все опечатки имеют глубокий смысл на самом деле. Прежде всего, хотелось бы поговорить о том, что такое ASM. ASM — это Attack Surface Management System, термин такой странный, ввел его не так давно, по-моему, в прошлом году Гартнер, и это такое расширение стандартных сканеров безопасности, когда вы мониторите себя постоянно, плюс добавляется сбор информации о доменах, плюс приоритизация уязвимостей, плюс возможность валидации результатов. С точки зрения разнообразия ASM Гарднер выделяет те, которые направлены на внешний периметр, те, которые так называемые EASM, те, которые направлены на внутренние системы, и те, которые больше ближе к стандартным CMDB, то есть собирают информацию обо всех ассетах в организации.
So that's closer to standard 7DB. That is, they collect information on all assets in the organization and enable you to add information from vulnerability scanners. Now, Gartner is a big fan of coming up with fancy names. And, after that talented person left Google, they no longer come up with something that sounds so funny in Russian like UEB. However, we came up with our own abbreviation of GASMOR, Global ASM, which includes, the typical tools for security professionals, like search engines for IoT. Now, that's a bad name we use for them. Most of you certainly know what Shodan is. And this thing has developed considerably over the past years. So right now, there are several dozen global ASM systems that are better known than others. All of them can be used to search for something interesting online. Now, the first time I got exposed to this thing was... what was that? I think that was 2012, maybe 2013, when I saw the results of Karna. There was a talented person who hacked routers and cameras, about 500,000 of them. And they did it in order to scan the whole internet, to ping all devices on the internet. So they collected, tracing data, reverse DNS data, and put it all in a folder. And to us, that was like a revelation that we don't need to do Nmap, we don't need to wait for hours. Back then the internet was much slower, but Nmap was as slow as it is. So all you gotta do is take a look at the perimeter of the whole organization and realize that, with 0.7% probability, not much has changed. So whatever Encarna has discovered is still there. Now let's go back a little bit. I mean, along the timeline. Slightly less public, there was the so-called Project Wilder. where they pinged the whole internet in order to calculate total number of hosts. And it was like old wives' tale for a long time, but then it was finally confirmed in public.
На одну из уязвимостей вебки массово ребята сканировали интернет и просто хакали до всего, до чего дотянетесь.
So it turned out that, people were scanning the internet and were, pretty much attacking everything they found. Previously, they would put you in prison for that, and now they say it's a bug bountyable. Now, Shodan is obviously very well known. And I think that you all know that the name of Shodan comes from computer games. It's a kind of artificial intelligence that sees everything, collects everything online, and it turned into a very well-known search engine for hackers. Shodan used to be extremely. It is still awesome. Fortunately or unfortunately, he has been resting on his laurels. Many global ASMs way ahead of Shodan right now, providing much better results, something that we are going to discuss a bit later. So when Shodan was around, that was certainly a breakthrough. All these attempts back then to let me put it differently. The age of that map was over. The time dorks tonight. In our SCADA Strangelove projects, I came to know the founder of Shodan. Industrial control system hardware is difficult to find, difficult to experiment with hardware. We still wanted to know a lot about that. And we really wanted to find ways to compromise them without having access to them. We would add our information to Shodan, we shared information with them. That's why Shodan is so good when it comes to web cameras and industrial control system.
Такая предыстория. Дальше мы начнем углубляться в технику.
This is a kind of a historical overview, and I'm going to hand over to Alexander here. Thank you, Sergey. Most ASM systems
за исключением верхнеуровневых каких-либо схем, Census и
will not really talk about how they operate.
Census и Binary Edge хотя бы как-то опубликовали верхнеуровневую логику.
Well, Census, Binary, and Edge did some top-tier logic.
Все это сканится, заливается куда-то в базу и отдается через API.
And then, scan workers are created, things get scanned, and information gets contributed to the database over an API. Now, that's an example of how Binary Edge operates, and I'm not sure you'll be able to glean much from this schematic.
В рамках как бы сканирования.
There are lots of nuances to take into account here.
Да, в сводке по сканируемым протоколам. ASM-системы в основном категоризируют по протоколам то, что они проверяют.
ASM systems are classified by protocols, what they inspect. ASM has got its own database.
Вот, собственно,
some databases have more assets, others fewer. Zoom AI, for example, Zoom AI, I'm sorry,
вот,
is ahead of Census and Shodan. In terms of the number of assets they have in the database, Zoom AI is ahead.
Ну и ориентировочная свежесть данных разных ASM-систем тоже на самом деле.
This one is how fresh data in various ASM systems is. Some differences as well. The average indicator
это 3 дня, ну и наш отечественный
for Shodan is 1. For Census, it's 3 days.
Вот, собственно,
and Netla, the Russian company, updates their data every 20 to 30 days.
И всякие остальные ASM-системы порой иногда
So Shodan, as well as other ASM systems,
недавнее CVE по MS
sometimes fail to reflect various CVEs. Take, for example, the recent MSMQ CV that allowed remote code execution was totally unknown to Shodan. So if you request information for port 881,
Но проходит время,
he
и
would only give you like 8 hosts.
Shodan
They do change over time.
добавляет уже какие-то проверки, и мы можем уже обнаружить
At least Shodan does. So now you can find checks there, and you can find more hosts.
Global ASM с бирюльками-балеринами.
So everybody needs their own global SM with bells and whistles.
Продукт, рустер. Вот.
We came up with our own product culture.
Сергей, он расскажет немножечко про это, да.
I should probably hand it back to Sergey so he can get more.
То есть идея писать что-то свое, она возникла
Well,
достаточно...
this idea of coming up code of our own
Но фактически, да,
appeared pretty
ограничениями,
a
которые
long time ago, right? And I should probably talk about it a bit later.
не так уж плохо взять и запилить что-то свое.
And with the existing limitations in various ASMs, it was a logical choice. The initial name of the project was different. It was not really
Для преемственности это тоже название песни
Cold.
Chains.
True.
Дальше мы поговорим про то, как
No, because based in Russia, it has got something to do with Alice in Chains.
Shodan, и Игорь здесь даст немного деталей.
So we've been looking at ways of creating your own Shodan on the back of the envelope. Hello, guys. Thank you very much for your interest.
Раскрывают все остальные ASM. Мы попробовали в этом разобраться. Ну, то, как это получилось.
Now I want to share with you know-how that we have around ASMs. Well, I've got a presentation and it's up to you to decide if it's any good.
Потому что
The first stage, arguably one of the most important ones, is port scanning.
Мы
Well, because the completeness of this stage impacts the relevance of everything else you do. We had a grandiose objective of scanning the whole internet in a matter of 24 hours, and we focused on TCP ports. An important condition was
остальные ресурсы, которые у нас есть, ну, поскольку
maximal use of our resources, traffic and port-wise.
которые выполняют эту задачу. Вот, ну и они, соответственно, дальше будут сравниваться между собой. Чтобы примерно понимать в целом, что происходит, да, и какие объемы всего того, что нам необходимо было сделать, соответственно, ну, количество IP-адресов, там, 2 в 32 все знают, ну, под звездочкой, за исключением того, что
The number of IP addresses
попадают.
of 32.
Количество портов, ну, 65535, множим одно на другое, получаем...
Number of ports is over there, 655 by 30 to the power of 35. You multiply the two, that's a lot, right? And people usually have this kind of reaction
Там, примерно
because it's not really clear, like, what you want to do with this assessment.
количество...
If you know something about traffic,
Ну и, соответственно, хорошо.
that's the number of terabytes per day.
А что мы при этом имеем? Вот, соответственно, некоторое количество сетевых карт лучше больше одной, ну об этом я поговорю в рекомендациях. Вот, ну и другие параметры узла сканирования, такие как там центральный процесс,
So I'll
оперативный.
talk about recommendations a bit later. This is some recommendations related to CPU and RAM, and these resources are not as critical as the networking resources.
Которые
Now, this slide actually
подходят по предназначению для данной задачи. Соответственно, из чисел, которые представлены на слайде, можно сделать вывод примерный о том, сколько ресурсов там потребуется. Вот, получается, в стандартной конфигурации на операционной системе Linux для того, чтобы просканировать все возможные пары в сети интернет, нам нужно там, порядка 2000 сетевых карт. Вот, но есть нюанс. Ну, как бы число кажется большим, вот, но есть нюанс. Ну и, соответственно, исходя из этого числа, наш приоритет — это скорость. Вот, ну, потому что, как бы, хотелось бы, конечно, собрать все, вот, но возможности такой пока нет. Соответственно, какие проблемы у нас возникали на этом этапе? Соответственно, первая проблема — это сложно было заполнить канал, канал на отдачу, на выходящий трафик. Потом некоторые средства по каким-то причинам упирались в некоторую границу, и дальше ничего не следовало. Вот. То есть какие настройки ты не используешь, как самого средства, так и операционной системы, ничего на это не влияет. И когда средства говорят о своей исключительности по скорости, надо как бы это проверять.
So when services claim they have exceptional speeds, it naturally needs to be checked. There were also issues with large files because different tools would deal with them differently. So if you have the capability to send ranges, go for it. For those who plan to use the services in their own development, be careful about licenses open source products may have.
Тепловую карту, так скажем, да, вот, в которой...
We have developed a kind of a heat map here,
я надеюсь, всем видно, where
we displayed the available tools. So shown on the left are the tools, and shown at the top are various criteria. So the hotter it is, the better, the colder, the worse. So you can see here that Z-map is the best fit for our needs.
На этом этапе. Приоритет скорость, как я уже сказал. Использование Maskana или Z-map в зависимости от ваших задач. Есть такая еще особенность.
So the usage will really depend on the kind of needs that you have.
Быстрее обрабатывать пакеты. Это
Link is a very important module which helps process faster, something that's very important to us right now. And ideal configuration for network, more than one.
Соответственно, максимально мощную карту, которая будет отправкой заниматься. Плюс в сети интернет существует некоторое количество узлов, которые, соответственно, смотрят за тем, что в этом интернете происходит. Вот, и когда вы начинаете безрассудно сканировать весь интернет, вы попадаете в некоторые базы, скажем так, с не очень хорошими IP-адресами, да, или другими ресурсами. Вот, соответственно, дабы туда не попадать, желательно максимально размазывать свое сканирование по узлам, взять условно один порт и просканировать весь интернет. Вот. И, соответственно, и важный момент еще то, что лучше в диапазоны не попадать, то есть максимально бить диапазон. Вот. И, соответственно, использовать различные модели предсказания открытых сетевых портов на конкретном узле. Следующим этапом логичным является захват баннеров и определение программного обеспечения, которые есть на той или иной связке IP-адрес порт. Тут задача примерно та же самая, за исключением того, что у нас уже есть список пар, куда нам обращаться. Вот. И важно еще то, что все программное обеспечение, все протоколы, которые существуют в интернете, они разные. Вот. Нам надо постараться провзаимодействовать с максимальным количеством. Также, соответственно, список средств, которые существуют. Тут, на самом деле, на этом этапе ситуация уже была более приятная, потому что у нас была примерная статистика по количеству, которая есть на данный момент по парам уже найденных связок IP-порт из ASMA Census. Вот. И, соответственно, мы посчитали примерное количество пар, которое нам необходимо проверять, соответственно, в секунду. В таблице представлены примерные замеры по скорости. Можно оценить, что цифры довольно соизмеримы. Вот. То есть внизу у нас Census, с которым мы сравниваем. Первые 4 — это, соответственно, средства, которые мы выбираем. Вот. Какие особенности? Соответственно, у каждого средства своя база знаний о том, как надо взаимодействовать с тем или иным протоколом. Вот, то есть какие пакеты отправлять, в каком количестве, как судить об ответе для определения программного обеспечения. Плюс многие, некоторые из этих средств, которые представлены в списке, они не позволяют очень глубоко погрузиться в то, какие пакеты непосредственно надо отправлять. То есть поставил...
I'm sorry, I'm having some connection issues. I will be replaced soon. But in the meanwhile, with some of these tools, you need to be very
Наша, да, которую мы стараемся решать, это потери.
careful and
Повышаем
Jesus.
скорость, теряем. Вот. Ну и такая, на самом деле, супер важная задача — это протоколы, которые расположены на нестандартных сетевых портах, вот, либо протоколы, о которых мы не знаем, как с ними взаимодействовать. Вот. Ну и тут 3 ситуации. Либо мы ждем, либо мы какую-то последовательность бинарных данных отправляем, либо мы к какому-то другому, более понятному правилу обращаемся к, соответственно, сервису. Вот. Ну и тут такая же тепловая карта, все то же самое, чем теплее, тем лучше, чем холоднее, тем хуже. Вот. И у нас тут выделяется ZGraph 2, вот, соответственно, это также ZMap Project, так же, как и
That's a ZMap project, just like ZMap. So let's continue.
Так как у нас со скоростью
A few
всё примерно уже
recommendations.
получше, вот, мы
We see
можем
that the speed has gotten better,
сконцентрироваться на полноте
we can
информации,
concentrate
вот, то
on
есть
the completeness
собирать
of
побольше
information,
протоколов и, соответственно,
gather more protocols, and
перепроверять
therefore
результаты с
perhaps
нескольких
recheck the results for a few
В
nods.
ZGraph
ZGraph,
довольно большое количество протоколов основных, да,
There are quite a few
но,
protocols,
средства,
major
представленные в
protocols.
списке, содержат больше.
But
Соответственно, если
there are more on the list.
посмотреть на то, как
So if we
делать
look
эти
at
другие средства,
how
очень
other
просто можно
tools are
реализовать
working, we
всю
can
ту же
easily
функциональность для
implement
дальнейшего
the same
расширения.
functionality for further
Ну и,
extension.
соответственно, все по
And,
конфигурации, все то же самое,
According to the config, it's pretty much the
так же, как и на
same.
предыдущем этапе. Ну и последним этапом в этой
And
цепочке
The last stage in the chain
служит для того,
is
чтобы
certificate
не
collection,
только определять
so that not
программное
only we would be able to
обеспечение, но и
define
постараться
software, but
связать,
also try to tie
организации с теми
organizations
ресурсами, которые мы
with the
сканируем.
resources that we are scanning
Получается,
here.
те же 24 часа.
So, same
вот, и
24 hours,
как раз
but-
для этого, то есть для этой связи JA3S и JARM хэши.
For that, we can tie with JA3S and JARM
И
hashes.
также
Very popular at the moment. And here's the set of tools.
тут опять же
Окей.
все хорошо.
Seems
Вот, то
cool,
есть, опять
right?
же, статистика с ценсиса по сертификатам.
This is Sensei stats for
Это,
certificates.
Такое число. Ну и опять же по скорости.
And on the speed.
Mascan и Nmap у нас
Mascan
упали.
and Nmap
Mascan из-за
have dropped
скудности
Mascan
информации, Nmap
because we
из-за
don't have enough
скорости.
info, Nmap because of the
Остались ZGraph
speed.
2 и TLS6.
What's at Grab 2 and Taylor 6.
Пытается собрать
Taylor 6 is
максимально
trying
точно,
to put
поэтому,
together
типа,
as
201
precisely
секунду
as
он сканит
possible.
хорошо,
201
потом
seconds it
остальные
scans
100
well,
секунд пытается
and then the
собрать
remaining
что-то.
100 seconds it's
Вот.
trying
А
to
у
collect
ZGraph
what
этой
it's not been able
проблемы
to collect.
нету,
For ZGraph, there is
сказал,
no such
так он и
problem.
сделал.
It just does what it says.
Вот. Но у нас тут на самом деле существует немножко другая проблема на этом
There's a
этапе.
different kind of problem here.
Во-первых, это то, что не
First
все хэш-функции
Is that
реализованы
not
в
all of the
ZGraph.
hash functions have been implemented in ZGraph.
Различные средства используют различные библиотеки.
Different tools use different libraries.
Соответственно, надо
Obviously,
внимательно
we
смотреть, что и
must
как.
therefore pay attention to what's going on.
Потери. Вот. Ну и последний
Loss.
пункт, на самом деле, один из важных, то, что тут
And another very
уже
important
должна
point,
быть приоритет на
concentration, the priority should be on apprehending the traffic because we get rather big packages in return and your network card may not be able to handle it. And also heat map.
Все то же самое, на ней выделяется
Pretty much the
ZGraph
same,
с дальнейшими
but there's a
доработками
ZGraph here with further
функциональности,
advancements
что
on
он
functionality.
написан на Go.
Thankfully, it's written on Go, not on C.
Можете
And
закидать помидорами, но
you
мне кажется,
can
на Go писать проще.
Throw
чем
some tomatoes at me, but I believe that writing with Go
Ну
is
и некоторые
easier than writing
рекомендации по
with
этому
C.
этапу,
And a few recommendations for this
тут, опять
stage.
же, мы можем
Here again,
со скоростью все хорошо, берем
the speed is
полнотой,
fine.
добавляем JA3S в ZGraph.
We add JA3S to ZGraph.
TLS и
We use
JARM
modules
для,
TLS and JARM
общей информации
to collect
по
general info
сертификату и, соответственно,
on certificate
JARM для,
and
получается,
SJARM
ну, в общем, для подсчета хэша самого. Вот, акцент на
to
приеме,
calculate
ну и
hash.
также размазанное сканирование по всем узлам. Вот, ну, мы молодцы, провели 3 этапа, собрали информацию.
We have put
Остается
together
вопрос,
3 stages.
что дальше
So,
будем делать? Я
what's
передаю
next?
слово.
And I hand over the word.
Ну, собственно, да. Наш русский
Well,
начался с проекта Ruscan.
our Ristil began with the Ruscan project.
Если зайти в Shodan, то
If we look at the Shodan,
прифигеть
you'll be able
от
to
количества
see
уязвимостей,
that
которые он иногда
we have
показывает
so
только
many
в
vulnerabilities there,
И
according
эти
to a
уязвимости,
particular
скорее
host,
всего,
and those vulnerabilities
даже не существовали
will
на
most
хосте.
probably be non-existent at the
и-
host.
Это говорит нам о том, что
This
Shodan
says that
и подобные
Shodan
их могут не
and
валидировать.
similar SMs may not validate that kind of
Ну,
thing.
допустим,
For example,
да, все, назад.
Yes.
Допустим, уязвимость
For example,
Fortinet Authentication Bypass 22 года.
Fortinet Authentication Bypass 2022. The point of vulnerability is that you can rewrite SSH certificate and get hold of access to device.
Shodan ничего не знает об этой
Shodan
уязвимости,
doesn't know
хотя
anything
прошло
about this
релиза
vulnerability,
года.
although it's been 6
И
months since the
криминал
release.
об этом
And criminal IP
знает. Вопрос
knows about it.
нас,
The question is
нас очень
how?
заинтересовало,
we were
то,
extremely
как
Curious about how criminal IP was able to find out
мы,
about
собственно,
this
начали сами
vulnerability.
изучить это.
We have began researching the thing on our own,
Оказывается, как выяснилось,
and turns out
мы решили немножечко пофазить
we decided to phase it a little bit.
админку, так сказать, даже не пофазить. Мы сначала решили
Not even phase it, we decided to research first.
обнаружили, что
We've
если на
discovered that if at
админке
endpoint
передать,
we send to the
запрос
admin
с заголовком
the query with a request
и
forwarded by
указать с портом,
and
и
put the local host with the
то
port on the protocol,
в ответ
then, as a response, we will get the version
и,
of the port
собственно, серийный
and serial. Cool.
Ну и, собственно, как из этого следует, да, ASM ищет уязвимости, но не всегда их
ASM is looking for vulnerability, but not always it can find it or even verify, at least verify. So we decided to figure out our very own process of verification and enrichment. So if we have
мы развернули проект,
SVEID, we deploy OpenCVE project, I recommend you to find out more about it. Very useful thing to have. OpenCVE
подтягивает из NVD уязвимости, списки
gets
уязвимостей,
vulnerabilities from NVD, the list of vulnerabilities, etc. Then we take
получили от OpenCVE
what we got
даем
from
это
OpenCVE and
repository.
send it
Собственно,
to
Tricket
the
GitHub
trickiest
repository.
GitHub
Это,
repository.
формализованный список CVE-шек, где
This is the formalized list of CVEs where you can find
описание
tags,
и так далее.
descriptions, etc.
Дальше мы это все идем
then we look through all of that
в нуклеях,
in a project discovery in Nucleus,
Nuclei templates репозиторий,
nuclear templates repos, and then
верифицируем это все.
verify all of that.
SafeCheck, мы такое ввели понятие. как
We
безопасная
deploy
проверка,
SafeCheck.
например,
That's the
при-
term that we've
при
introduced,
пример
like
с фортиком,
SafeCheck.
If we give an example with the fort,
переписывание
then
SSH-ключей.
Rewriting SSH keys
Такая, так сказать, очень
is a kind of
сложная, как сказать, даже не сложная, не очень
complex, not even complex, that's just very user-friendly thing to do,
особенно если
procedure,
этим заниматься массово.
especially if we do it on a mass
Оно
scale.
нарушает как бы
And it
целостность
breaks
сервера,
apart the
от того,
holiness of the server. That's why we've been thinking for quite a while, how do we deal with this process? And we've developed
говорил, понятие SafeCheck.
the SafeCheck
Что из себя
notion.
представляет
So what's a SafeCheck here?
Это набор, так сказать,
This is a set of actions
которые смотрят вокруг
which take a look around the vulnerabilities, what's happening there, and by third-party signs,
здесь
they identify that there is the vulnerability. If we look down a little bit,
уязвимости и описания нет,
if vulnerabilities and descriptions are not in OpenCVE for some dubious reason,
тянулась или уязвимость слишком свежая и она есть только на GitHub.
the vulnerability is fresh and it's only at the GitHub. We take the pop from the GitHub, we research it, and
Клейку из него делаем, собственно, SafeCheck в рамках.
make nucleus out of it, the SafeCheck.
Далее это контрибьютим в репозиторий.
We contribute that to the repo,
Project Discovery.
Project
У
Discovery,
нас получается на выходе
and we get
CVE-шечка.
the enriched CVE and in the end.
Так, С чего мы начали, хотелось бы, наверное,
What
рассказать.
did we start with?
Мы начали первоначально со списка
We began
10
with initially a list of top 10 vulnerabilities.
А,
That was somewhat in a table.
То есть ЦВЕшка,
How did it look like? CVE, description, and Shodan request. We look at the
которые
CVEs
вектор атаки сетевой,
that are under the network vector attack,
CVSS скорингу.
CVSS scoring, down the scale
Хотели
from 1 to
посмотреть
7.
такую штуку, насколько этими уязвимостями интересуются в медиа. То есть есть такие сервисы.
We looked at
Trends,
whether
CVS
there is
Stalkers.
interest in media to this vulnerability, like CVS Trends, CVS Stalkers tool, so we can see whether this particular CVEs are just being discussed
Развили,
whatsoever.
из топ-10,
And we looked out of top 10,
топ-100.
the list of top 100. But when we've reached a top 100, we realized that managing all of that in a table is too hard. It's too much of a hardcore.
Да, здесь у нас... Давай, да, передам Сергею, как раз он расскажет.
Смотрите, зачем мы это все делали?
Why have we been doing all of that? Because, as a matter of fact, if any of you have encountered safety scanners, good ones,
Типа Xspider, например, или
like Spider,
кто из них лучше?
or the other one, I don't remember which one is better. But you know that they usually give you the endless list of vulnerabilities. You look at them and you think, so what? That's why our idea
У нас в приоритете
was that our priority would be those vulnerabilities
практикующий там баг-баунтер,
that have like a bug bouncer or pen tester or like weak hacker would say, I would hack it definitely. I would get into it. That's on the one hand. On the other hand,
админ, который увидел,
so that the admin who is looking at that,
его сейчас взламывать, тут же
the threat of a hacker would just go and patch it right away. Because otherwise,
огромная простыня из тысячи
when you have a sheet of 1,000 potential vulnerabilities in PHP, which not in the public of exploit, they're being called via a particular function,
у тебя мотивация патчить
your motivation to patch is
этот список,
dwindling.
прикрутить EPSS.
So we got this list with the
На
EPSS.
следующей конференции про
Hopefully at the next conference about smart cybersecurity we'll tell about that in more detail.
В конце концов,
But,
опять же, мы будем придумывать свой
we love
парк, и мы
To
придумываем
invent
свою
our own
безопасности.
amusement park. And we invented our very own security metrics, which has another additional level, which is the storm level, the purple one, which shows that yes, there is vulnerability, it is public, it's slight degree of vulnerability, it's close to CVSS, temporary score, but with a particular shift. So that helps us to evaluate not just particular vulnerability, but also evaluate the risk related to the node. And in the near future, we'll publish this methodology as well, which allows you to evaluate the degree of risk related to organization, its branch, etc. Let me tell you right away that this metric is only for the outside perimeter. It doesn't take into account business risks, result-oriented security, etc. Internal perimeter as seen by the hacker. The hacker doesn't care. I'll get into it, I'll figure it out. The methodology in public is there, we tested it, it works. Why did we need this methodology? The matter is that the project is called RusScan for a reason. It was made so that we can scan this thing.
называемого министерства, Минцифры называется. Соответственно, мы достаточно давно уже работу.
Been observing this thing for a while, and the request from the clients was the following: give us email doc.
Дайте нам то, из-за чего мы можем прийти в компанию и сказать,
give us something to come to the company and say, guys, dudes, fix it quickly. Like Fortic, which has left, but it's there at the perimeter, not being patched, etc. And as a matter of fact, you can go around the authentication at the outside perimeter with all of the security functions. Probably that's a bit troubling. So we began to work. We began to look at to work with the industry center, with the Russian Ministry of Cybersecurity. We looked at the vulnerabilities would need to patch very quickly, So that's why we got these images. Surprisingly, I mean, not surprisingly, but trade is at the first spot. Previous presenter probably talked about that because we have one widely spread piece of software, and many internet stores use it to write, and that particular software has very weak patch management. As a matter of fact, all of the industries are more or less vulnerable. It's inevitable. And these are 100 vulnerabilities through which it is possible to scan automatically. And if we talk about how spread they are, Bittrex is number one, then Cisco, then Exchange, MS&Q. This is a very fresh vulnerability, and still we have Proxy Shell,
достаточно серьезных организаций. Такое ощущение,
at quite serious organizations. I mean, looks like
большая находка в этом это был
my biggest discovery here was actually
ну и соответственно Exchange 2000.
the fifth one on Windows 2000 and Exchange 2000 accordingly. I mean, in serious organizations. Another cool ID that we've been able to extract out of this is time to patch vulnerabilities in the field.
Мы не мониторили там мелкие, это прям крупные компании. Здесь
not small, but big companies. Big companies. Here are vulnerabilities
не устранялись в течение месяца.
Which have not been patched for a month. So what do we have here? We have here that there are a lot of deliberations that big Western products have left Russia. What do we do with the patches? It's not better with patching our Russian software. It's not even that the deployment and update cycle is questionable. People just don't know how to update it. I mean, if Microsoft and Cisco has a button that you can click, I'm not talking about Linux. When you just get the upget and you're happy. It's a zoo. It's a zoo here. And another cool case, we have been talking about vulnerabilities with CVEs, but there is an important thing related to misconfiguration.
Для его демонстрации приведем проект BMC Map. Почему этот проект возник? Когда-то давно я баловался с безопасностью BMC-шек на примере NVIDIA DigiX.
I was dealing with playing some this security features with like big expensive Google boxes, and we have discovered a range of vulnerabilities in BMCs. BMC, you know, out of band management interface, which works even if you don't have the operating system installed. You can still connect to this thing, especially if it's data center server. You can get the operating system, get direct memory access, relocate it, get CVM, and do whatever you want. The operating system that your major apps are working, they don't even know that there's a separate controller there. So we have these vulnerabilities.
Там они даже подключили господина Матросова, когда он там еще работал, чтобы он убедил меня не релизить. Они устраняли это почти как АСУТПшники. 1,5 года. Почему?
So they've been really patching it for a year and a half. Why? Because NVIDIA puts together a server. There's a BMC kind of a mainframe there, produced by Quanta Computers, and that's the BMC that's working, developed by American Megatrendets. And here is the chain, supply chain. You need to push the vulnerability throughout the entire supply chain to fix it. That took a while. But a short while ago, in 2002 and 2003, the guys from Eclipsum, they rediscovered those vulnerabilities. You probably had this when you read somebody's CVE and you're thinking, damn it, that's mine. And I looked at it, and I downloaded firmware, and I looked, yep, it's still not patched. It's in the firmware for NVIDIA, but in the major firmware used by other vendors like HP, there are loopholes. So we decided to take a look. What's happening in the world with these BMC things? We looked at criminal IP, and it told us that it doesn't know anything about that. So at 623 port, IPMI port, something is sticking out, but what is sticking out, we don't know. Not all of the BMCs are aware of this. Global ASM, sorry. So we wanted to release this in the Rooster, but it took a while. It will be in the public soon. We'll let you know. And we recalled about our old project. Rooster was initially called Grinder in honor of the Alice in Chains grind, but they told us that it's better to actually rename it because of this first name in Google search.
So this project has been around for a long time, and we have been running it together with NeHope, AISEC, and SD1 for the purpose of mass scanning of the internet. Now let me stress here that the vulnerabilities we have been talking about in total, across the Russian Federation, in total, 4,700, Redfish, IBMI, Web, and other management interfaces. Out of this 4,700, roughly 1/3, even according to this passive scan, are vulnerable to remote management as long as you have admin rights. So that's the world we live in, okay? So this OB interface or ABMI, they're no laptops, these are servers. And for some reason, their management interfaces are exposed to the intranet. Now to summarize it all, indeed, we want to summarize it all. There are so many ASM systems, and each of them has got its own know-how, and this know-how may be difficult to understand for an end user. Moreover, it's not entirely clear how you're being scanned. From the server side, that is. Also, every ASM system has got its own dork or syntax system, and that may present some difficulties when you need to engineer your queries, particularly when you want to use, say, 4 or 5 ASM solutions. And then ideally formalize them, standardize them. Another big pain point is around the export of results, because there are different data formats for export, for compiling results, and Shodan is a particular pain point here. I'm speaking from experience. Not a single ASM has, proper systems for working with passive DNS. With this difficulty, ASM systems find it very difficult to work with domains. Now imagine that you enter a well-known domain. All you will have is just a handful of results, a handful of hosts. Though this is very far from reality. Also, ASMs lack integration with data lake services. So it's not entirely clear what you would like to feed to ASM if it's struggling with domains. Usually you give a second-level domain as a feed, and then everything stems from that. It can also be pretty difficult to identify the owner of a particular domain. So you may have found a vulnerability, but ascertaining who sort of owns it can be difficult. I mean, you can certainly do the who is and see the wide range of addresses attributable to a particular organization, but the practice shows that most of these addresses will then be resolved to ISPs or clouds, which gets you pretty much nowhere. Therefore, we need to kind of enrich it, because we certainly want to identify the exact owners, and we can send them letters. There is also an issue with searching vulnerable hosts by hash. So, for example, we may have GRM hash. Speaking from my own practice, I can tell you that Shodan will not return all the hosts that match. Like if you do it the other way around, you will be able to obtain a longer list of vulnerable hosts. Primitive reporting, where you cannot customize reports for your own needs, is another issue we have with global ASMs. These are all pain points because naturally we would love to customize reports, but ASM at the moment do not allow that. We're now talking about the not so distant gray future, and so much has been said earlier today.
Из ASM или наоборот передаваемых в ASM, то есть про
about data coming from ASM or being fed to ASM. Remember what I said previously about dorks.
OpenAI, естественно.
So OpenAI naturally gets used a lot.
Разные запросы.
And after that, there will be various requests sent to various ASMs.
Результат с разных ASM-ов.
And this way we can obtain results from various ASMs. So Census has published beta version of the Census GPT.
В которой они пытаются обработать, как оно там, этот Census GPT, да, бету. Ну, собственно, если так в целом посмотреть, то
So generally speaking, Census GPT, OpenAI can all be useful when it comes to processing videos and snapshots in order to extract from them things that are sensitive and important. I should probably hand it back to Sergey so he can tell us more about our bright future. Absolutely, I'm your main man for bright future. Well, the important question here is about the breadth and width of data that can be collected by systems like this. We recently said what we wanted to see, that's DNSs and host names and tracking of bug bouncer systems and what have you. Well, actually, this slide shows that all the modern technologies in machine learning can be can be used and leveraged at different levels. For example, statistical models can be quite useful for optimizing port scanning. If you're only scanning 65,000 ports, but only 500 ports, you should expect to be used on a given system. That's a great improvement. Or NLP systems that can help you with processing the results, doing fuzzy hashing, developing right prompts, and computer vision that could be very useful for processing videos and screenshots. Well, for example, the screenshot of remote desktop can certainly tell you so many things, including user fingerprints. I understand that some groups are doing something along these lines, but not too much in any case. So we've mentioned our own safe checks, we've mentioned some stats, we've mentioned some BMC things, we've mentioned our own methodology. Very soon, all these things will be public, and we are going to release everything through the security expert community, which is, as the name suggests, a community that we initiated jointly with Kaspersky Labs and Positive Technologies. So that's a project that is closely related to Yermak, and Yermak will dwell on tomorrow. There we're going to publish our announcements, our releases, maybe stuffing announcements as well. So we'll be happy to see you there. Please scan the QR code. It's green, which means that it's safe to use. It's a joke for old timers. So let's build open security together. Thank you so much. Right, we should have 4 minutes and a half to take your questions, and 3 best questions will get 3 great prizes.
Здравствуйте, коллеги, спасибо за доклад, очень интересно. У меня вот вопрос.
Thank you very much for such an interesting presentation. I have a question about Shodan. So you've been talking about vulnerabilities, and I understand that they're not verified, or can they be verified? Well, Shodan has got, I don't remember exactly, like fewer than 20 vulnerabilities. It is quite good at identifying.
Да.
Everything else is pretty much crap.
Пример, ну, представление о том, как он это именно...
Other examples or some understanding about how they do it? Well, they do it through safe checks, just like we do, like X-Spider does it, like many other security scanners.
Какая-то...
Will your scanner have any verification
Смотрите, понятно, что
on board?
это наша основная цель. То есть те уязвимости,
Well, obviously, that's the main objective. You know, the vulnerabilities that end up in the violet area are the ones that we are very certain of, like 0.9 and all the others. Even if they have killer CVEs associated with them, we're not going to kind of highlight them for you if we are not confident. Though we will certainly alert you to them. So this way, we are trying to optimize your expenses when it comes to patch management.
Добрый день, спасибо за доклад.
Hi, thanks for the report.
Если позволите, что у вас с масштабированием в итоге всей этой истории?
How about
Именно в железо,
scale?
в клауд и масштабирование, это наверное,
Why are you not doing it
как
on cloud?
попадание
And
в
also,
в спам-хаус там и так далее, используете ли вы тут
what about spam databases, spam house?
первый блок? И если
How do you deal with that?
про сейф-чеки было очень интересно,
And what you mentioned about safe checks was very interesting.
вы подбираете
If I got it right,
кастом,
you sort of manually
там на самом деле
configure every safe check. There is no magic, you're absolutely right.
ты по результатам сейфчека можешь достоверно
Sometimes you can rely on safe check results in order to exactly identify a particular version and then do more based on that.
Ну,
As regards to the first question about scaling,
в открытую. То есть
Indeed.
ты договариваешься с провайдером, ты говоришь, что да, я сканирую.
we do everything in the open. Like we talk to the provider, we tell them
Быстро забанит.
that we're doing it, that we're scanning. So we make sure we're in the whitelist, you know, just like Shodan and census.
Нет, там докеры у нас, все, да.
And we use Dockers.
Докеру вот эта десятка-то нужна, да? То есть
But Docker still needs this dozen or 10.
30 хостов, в принципе, хватит
30 hosts should be enough
десяток на весь мир, да.
for the whole world, that is.
Ну там больше, там
The question is off mic.
скан исходящий много. Да.
Now, for the outbound port scans, we certainly need more.
Это на все. Нет, нет. Ну, очень дорого. Давайте коммерцию отдельно обсуждать, да.
So let's discuss commercial issues separately, okay? Thank you very much for your presentation, and the memes were great. I'm also wondering if you've done any comparison of your system versus Shodan, with a particular emphasis on the Russian segment of the internet and on the global internet as well. And have you actually considered
Мы сканируем Китай, очевидно, что мы не все хосты можем в Китай
Хороший
сканировать в
вопрос.
России.
that, well, obviously there will be geographical differences between various systems? I see what you mean, sir. It all started in COVID times, and what we're saying is balkanization of the internet. And
за последнее время просел там.
over the past months, Shodan has gone down from 14 to 11 million host pairs for RUNET, Russian internet alone. In order to do proper scanning of the internet, you gotta scan the same node from 3 different locations. That's our
Зараза, привет!
finding. Hello, Zaraza.
Безусловно, там получается сканер и там какой-нибудь план терраформа, что как развернуть свою ферму, настроить все, и одной кнопкой.
So, will there be a GitHub repository for, you know, a system you can deploy on your own to do port scanning? We are going for sure to release the software part.
Но там
And we have selected the ZMap stack, and there's still so much that we need to do on top of that. And we're going to release it in a phased way.
публикации.
We are going to do technical publications for the next year or so. Thank you.
Можно я специально попрошу вот
I'm sorry, can I ask that person to say whatever they've got? Of my question.
да. Да, все, что лицензионно не ограничено, все до
Everything that's licensed,
к себе, это помогает в том числе.
I'm sorry, everything that's not licensed, we're trying to put under the hood, which is good for optimization purposes.
Не тянуть
Because we don't need to sort of, have everything verified. What we also have as part of our plans is an asset model.
утечки и так далее.
And then we can link new things to this asset model and new leaks.
R&D-шная часть, но будет. Да, ну и для того, чтобы его нормально сканировать, опять же, там DNS.
So in order to do proper scanning, DNS and some such, yes, there will be extra work required. This will be the last question. For sure, I'm here.
По десятке, 30 хостов, да?
So you said 30 hosts. I'm sorry, if this is a technical question, I'm happy to give you a private answer.
Действия с этих же машин или другие машины уже?
Okay, you do scanning,
Все равно потом идете по...
and after the sync scan, will you be using the same machines, the same 30 hosts?
Это катается по разным узлам. То есть,
Но если вы десятку заняли полностью...
We sort of go around. Okay, you've taken this 10. Will you be requesting HTTP guests from the same? Well, like I said, 30 is the total that you need.
есть такая статистика о том, что, ну, в том числе и нами,
So there are stats, and we can validate them,
процентов в
that the internet changes roughly
она вот плавает, да?
15% per day.
Можно посчитать, посмотреть, я
Да,
понимаю.
и некоторые вещи тебе не
But
надо.
that's calculable.
Просто
So some things you don't need to re-request, like certificates.
пересечения.
They have expiry dates.
Уже проверил и не
So if you've checked the hash, you don't need to do it again anytime soon. So there are numerous optimizations there. So Igor wanted to scare you with his figures.
А вкладываете
There are optimizations there for sure.
куда там S3 у вас или что-то? Это же много.
And where do you put the data?
все, куда еще?
Well, into ClickHouse. Where else?
Так, спасибо. Был вопрос про
So there was this question about
сейф-чеки.
safe checks
Давайте
on the development side. There was also a question regarding volume,
хороший. И от вас бы хороший вопрос.
which was good. And you had a good question as well. So please grab your prizes. Thank you very much. Hope to see you again.